What's up everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you a fun recipe that involves a bit of airbrushing with dark chocolate to create a velvety texture for this tart. So let's dive into this recipe. Alright, so to start building out the tart, I'm going to make a few thin crispy wafers to create a base for the tart. So in a mixing bowl, you're going to whisk together the egg whites and sugar until it just begins to lightly froth up. After that, add in the melted butter and flour, then continue to whisk until the dry ingredients have fully absorbed and there are no lumps left. Next, you're going to spread a generous dollop of the batter into a thin, even sheet atop a silpat. Then you're going to bake it at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for about 7 to 10 minutes or until it's a light golden brown color. Once the wafer sheets have finished up in the oven, remove the silpat from the tray and carefully punch out the rings while they're still hot. Now if they start to become a little brittle, stick it back in the oven for a minute and then finish the rest of the tray. Now that all the wafers are shaped, you're going to fill a small pastry bag or Ziploc with some pistachio butter or any kind of nut butter for that matter, and begin piping out an even layer onto each wafer. Then you're going to stack and repeat until you have the tart base. You can finish it up with some chopped pistachios or again any kind of chopped up nuts or crunchy topping, and then set them aside until you're ready to place them in the mold. Next up is the dark chocolate cremeux, which is basically a rich chocolate pudding that uses egg yolks as the thickening agent. So to start it off, you're going to add in the milk, cream, sugar, and salt to a saucepan and heat it up to a light simmer. Then you're going to slowly pour that mixture into another bowl that has the egg yolks in it. Just don't stop whisking, otherwise it tends to curdle up a little bit. And then you're gonna have to start it all over again. But once that's done, you're gonna bring it back to the saucepan and then heat the mixture up to about 170 degrees Fahrenheit and then turn off the heat. After that, you can chop up some 70% dark chocolate into fine pieces. Then you're going to add that to the pan and fold everything together until the dark chocolate has completely melted. Once that's all finished up, transfer the luscious chocolate pudding into a piping bag fitted with a large round pastry tip. And you're going to start to pipe out the chocolatey greatness into each mold before it cools down. Otherwise, it tends to get a little bit too hard to pipe out. Once everything is ready to assemble, it's definitely up to you on the end presentation, but in this case I'm using a silicone donut mold for the shape, and the trick here is to work ahead of the chocolate because once it starts to cool down it's a little tough to manipulate. So just set the base in there, finish it, and freeze the tarts for at least 3 hours in a freezer that's at -3 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Now the next little bit is very optional, but if you really want that dusted or frosted look, then I suggest using a 60% dark chocolate to 40% cocoa butter blend that's at 90 degrees Fahrenheit with a simple airbrush kit. Just be sure that the equipment isn't cold, otherwise everything ends up getting all clogged and it's really kind of hard to spray and do the process. The kit that I believe I have, I got off of Amazon if I'm not mistaken, but anyways, the whole idea behind this technique is kind of like a little light form of spackling, using the freezing surface as a way to instantly freeze that sprayed chocolate butter. So just keep in mind that the colder the surface, the easier this is to accomplish. But if I were to do this again, I would probably get a better compressor and brush gun. After the airbrushing is all done, you can let these sit out for 10 to 15 minutes right before you are ready to serve, and garnish them how you'd like. Here I just have a little bit of grated pistachio to match that, inside pistachio butter feel. Or you could put these in the freezer until a later time, but I probably wouldn't or couldn't keep these in the freezer for more than a few days. What's up, boo, boo, boo? Okay, dessert time. What's up, guys? Okay, so funny enough, this is actually the second time that I'm doing this outro because something happened with the first time I did it. It got deleted or lost. I just can't find it on my hard drive. So I took the pleasure in making this beautiful chocolate velvet tart again, and it looks really good. I've kind of been playing with it a little bit, so that's why it's a little splotchy. But I am excited to test this again and tell you guys how the flavors are and run through it once more. So let's do that. Crispy, crunchy. So beautiful. Here we go. Wow. Really dark, salty, dark chocolate. Nice little bit bitter taste to it. So good, very creamy. Then you get that really crispy, the wafers with the pistachio butter, which are ridiculous. Kind of just enhances that the richness to the dish, and also breaks up the texture just a little bit because of the crispiness, and that pistachio butter has a different texture than the cremeux, the dark chocolate cremeux. I mean, honestly, I just need a cup of coffee. I should have made one before I did the outro. Wow, this is just as good as I remember the other one being. Like I said, maybe just a little bit better because it has that saltiness that I'm looking for, just a dash more. And that pistachio butter is really good. But all in all, the same exact dessert. I really want to try a few different variations with this, as far as white chocolate, different types of whipped custards, basically anything that can set properly in that mold. I would love to play around with, because there's so many different ways you could approach this with the velvet texture, lots of different colors, the thickness of the texture, how far back you're spraying. You get a little bit closer, you get a little different design. There are limits to it because sometimes it flakes off. Like this little corner piece started to flake off a little bit because the spray texture was a little bit too thick. So just little things you got to work with and figure out. It always coincides with consistency and just doing things over and over again in the kitchen. It's the only way you really get good at things in life, and the kitchen is no different than that. So practice always makes perfect, and you kind of get to learn how things fall apart and how things are done the wrong way, and that helps you sometimes figure out why you should do it the right way and the steps that are involved within each process and why they're there. And with all that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you did, make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you guys like what I'm doing here, give this video a big old thumbs up. Comment down below for future video requests, things you want to see on my channel. And of course, always make sure you check the description box for equipment links, ingredients, a little bit more about the recipe, and my social platforms and things like that if you want to follow me around those spaces. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time with another recipe. Later, guys.